Hey, what's up, fam? I called it. I called it a while ago. For those who have been, on my channel, I want to know that through my Black Clover videos, I've been calling that the idea of when the elves fall into, depravity and into this complete state of despair, they will turn into a dark elf. Now, this was a big reveal we had, obviously leaving off Asta. Both had an advancement inside of their forms or powered up forms. If only for a shorter period of time. It looks like it's starting to pull off a little bit from some of the aspects of it I noticed, but still looks good. And they only were able to do a small scratch uh, on the new demon. And he immediately, as I don't remember if I said this in stream or just was when I was talking to somebody about this, that he would heal himself. I think his reality warping magic is very limited to in the moment, and there's obviously going to be restrictions. But the fact that I feel like if there's anybody he can directly affect with his ability, it's going to be himself. But he's like just talking about an Asta, the one who's uh, the elven spirit who's loved by Mana for and the one harboring the Groomer that should have been his. And this chapter really falls back and obviously connects of the original saying in Black Clover. We remember chapter 1 when they talked about from a fifth leaf clover a demon is born. This omen of despair, and that is what this chapter really kind of puts out, because obviously we knew that the fifth leaf clover and this demon had to have some connection, and he actually says that he doesn't know who the demon inside of Asta's grimoire is, which is very interesting because it means that he acknowledges existence, but obviously there's more than one demon, but he just doesn't recognize this one, or maybe this is like a rogue demon, or this demon was new to the grimoire. We don't know, but he's like talking about offering up that grimoire to Asta. Meanwhile, Radis and Valtros are just watching, and I'm just wondering. I was wondering what they were doing, and now I'm kind of worried that what's Raditz going to do at this point. Like, how's he going to come into play here? Is he going to help Asta and or is he going to, play a bigger part in this whole battle? A lot of people thought that he was going to, use his magic to bring back the Wizard King. I don't think it would really matter at this point if he brought Julius back. I don't see what Julius would really accomplish at this point. But we see that once Patri is completely consumed by the fact that he was tricked. Everything that he was doing was actually for this demon. He was actually screwing over his people. That he falls enough in despair that the clover, the four-leaf clover on his grimoire turns black. And we find out once a four-leaf clover is swallowed by despair, that's when the fifth leaf is born. That's when we get a five-leaf black clover. So the significance of the name of the series not only revealed, but this also means that Asta isn't going to be the only one. There's going to be more Black Clovers within the series, so it wasn't exclusive to him. And it also opens up a lot of explanations on the Black Clover itself, what it does, because when we see the black forming on Patri, it is kind of revealed that once elves reach that end state of depravity, they become a dark elf. And the demon over here is just talking about how much fun it was, tricking the humans and the elves are doing what they wanted, just stringing them along. And now he's just ready for the next stage. And Dark Elf Patri, on the other hand, is just like ready to attack, and Asta. And you see that his light magic turns into dark light magic, so all his attacks are these black lights. And that, I think, will explain a bit of the anti-magic swords and why you have this. You had them beforehand when Licht had them, and there were these white blades, and then all of a sudden, when the Black Clover formed, and now there are these like dark ashy ones that have a this like layer of assuming anti-magic over it whenever anyone but him is wielding them. So there's going to be an explanation on how exactly that works, why there's a difference between the swords when Licht is wielding them and when they're just by themselves, and why Ass is able to kind of turn them into this pure black form, this like surreal opposite of what they were supposed to be. And I think that's pretty cool. And I like how things are really tying together. Everything is really starting to, fall into place. Meanwhile, the demon is just like, I don't care about you guys anymore. I'm gonna leave. But he does note that the fact that Asta has the 5-leaf grimoire, he says something about being ready to steal Asta's body, and I'm a little curious if it means he's thinking about maybe possessing Asta at some point, or if he wants to use it to bring the demon within his grimoire. I'm sorry, I had to mute my mic really quick because I had to yawn. As you could tell, me coming back into it. But I'm also really curious now of what other grimoires are going to be like, because like the Diamond Kingdom, their grimoires have the diamond symbol on them, and is there going to be an equivalent for them, or is there going to be equivalent for the Heart Kingdom and the Spade Kingdom? Will there be equivalent for when they leave the continent and go to other lands? Who knows? But for now, the the Black Clover really kind of sits, instead of being Asta's thing, the main character's thing. It's going to be just these kind of demonic grimoires that were led through more vicious means, and it will probably lay a larger role in in the grand scheme of things, where how many Black Clovers will there be, how many of these big dangerous characters are going to show up in the series, and how is Asta going to contend with it. Like the fact that he's able to have a Black Clover grimoire, though, because it wasn't originally his, and now he's harnessing it for himself, and it being I think a much more interesting kind of position as the main character. Obviously, he's got anti magic, and he doesn't have magic. We know the basics already around his character. But the fact, because of this, that he's able to have a 5-leaf grimoire and not kind of fall into this almost mindless attacking like zombie state that Patriot is in. Patriot just seems like he's pretty much on this evil autopilot. He just is. He's been so far along being controlled that now it's all he really knows how to do is listen to what this demon has brought to him, because his mind is going to be so clouded and so just delved into despair. And that's, I think, a really interesting in so many ways, because it also adds an extra layer to Vito's specific spot as one of the third eyes, as he was the despair, and he did advance to getting that demon language and aspects of him similar to the forbidden magic. We remember his upper spells after that point were all in demonic script. He had like super regenerative abilities that shouldn't have been able to, be be accessible for their people, but it does, and we see that because linked to despair, that's how he was able to do it, as well as the fact that in comparison, Raya didn't have that loss of control, that complete just mental state of hysteria, and we know Fauna's was different, and Fauna's was over specific reasons, but Vito was going down that path. And we saw other elves when they were kind of also dipping closer to that despair, but they weren't 4-leaf grimoires. So I'm wondering if that is also, like, in general, just a large factor. Like if you're a 3-leaf, if it's really gonna do, it could turn you into a dark elf, or a dark elf is only for 4-leaves. So if what exactly is going to be the case if a 3-leaf grimoire elf falls into a similar stasis. But I'm also wondering if it's gonna have if it's gonna exist for all species. Like, so, we have dwarves now. Is there going to be one for dwarves, or when we get get like if we got hobbits or centaurs, or just all other kinds of magical creatures down the line? Because this in general opens up a very large array of possibilities within Black Clover, because it's like this automatic like huge boss character that we could see further along the line. If you compare it to something like the series Toriko, there are these creatures called Nitros, and even weaker ones at first glance were like boss characters. And then at one point, a character having multiple nitros under the control, it was just like overwhelmingly devastating. Because now we saw the 5-leaf grimoire. Now we're seeing one, in creation take action. What's going to be further along the line? Are we going to see somebody who's a team of characters who are just 5-leaf grimoires? Something like, what if we had something like the Akatsuki, but instead they were all just kind of 5-leaves that are more in control, and maybe are all these demons throughout history gathering up, and now they're finally going to reunite for whatever their plan is. There's definitely a lot coming out of this. There's a whole lot to process, but a lot to kind of like look back at what we can connect and what it means for the future. And I think that's going to be a big step for Black Clover. Like these last couple chapters, like this arc especially, like this entire arc has been great. There hasn't really been many chapters in this arc where it just was kind of like boring going through the motions. It's been exciting, especially the last few have been great. We've had so many like big moments within the arc that I think this really just cements the spot that Black Clover is what I think is the best manga in the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine right now. It's definitely one of my favorites, and right now the only one coming out frequently that I would really put above this is Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. But obviously, like Black Clover's weekly status, the fact that it's way more fresh in a lot of ways, and it's in its first big arc. I think it holds that extra spot because even though the previous arcs were very, they had a lot to them, this is the first arc that really feels, hot and heavy, where everything is just thick and tying together and just laying out a grand scheme of things that are both making sense now, but also heading towards the future. So other than that, drop a comment below on what you thought about this chapter. I'd really appreciate if you would thumbs up the video, befriend the like button, and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. I do Black Clover videos every week, live streams on the weekends, and yeah, I really appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening.